Welcome back to the Real Femme Sapien YouTube channel where I give cultural commentary. Today I'm going to be talking to you all more from a place of compassion toward people on the other side of the aisle. Not the far left, but centrist and possibly center-left individuals. Because I think about who I was at 18 or 19, and I was a young woman, and I was very naive, and I was a Democrat by default. I wasn't passionately Democrat. I never went to a march. I wasn't passionately pro-choice either. I thought to myself that I would never do something like that, but I didn't want to take that right away from other women because that's how I was taught to think. Nobody had communicated to me sort of in the ways that Charlie Kirk would communicate to his audience. Just nobody communicated to me because I was growing up in a bubble why something like terminating a pregnancy would be such a heinous act, and why it would also be a wrong act, and also why that's the wrong answer to a difficult situation. Some of these youth, they're just not being talked to, and we kind of know that because we see iPad kids. Clearly, no one is socializing with some of our American youth, but there's also a bubble that goes on too. I know for myself, I grew up with an American ethnic background, Latin and Black. For a good chunk of my life, I didn't have a father or a father figure. I was considered fatherless. It was like a single mother home kind of situation, and it wasn't peaceful either. When I went to school, there were other kids that I would socialize with who were coming from similar backgrounds. And when you have a group or a collective, there's like a cohesive group identity, you end up in an ideological bubble. And it's not on purpose. I think a lot of parents are doing their best, or they're out of touch, or they're thinking that they're teaching you the right and moral things. And then it's further complicated because women view morality on whether or not there is a common consensus. If you have a dissenting opinion, in a woman's mind, it seems like that's the wrong opinion because that's how we operate. I think men might operate a little bit differently, but women are very communal. And I think it's a feature, not a bug. There are women's communities where they have high morality. And so if you were to act outside of that morality, you would be rightly judged and either naturally ostracized or purposely ostracized. That's how women function. In the right context, it's a very good thing. In the wrong context, it can be a very terrible thing because you find yourself co-signing things that at face value, they look okay, but you look a little bit closer and they're actually horrific. So I wanted to come here today from a place of compassion because I think it's really easy to see what's going on. There's a political assassination. Who really did it? I mean, they have a person in custody. They have information, but it's almost like a JFK thing where we may never fully know the details for, 75 years or more. I mean, information about the JFK assassination came out a couple of years ago, things that we had never considered, never been privy to. So, take everything with a grain of salt. There's a lot of ways that the truth can be distorted and lies can be forced upon us. If you're an aware American, you should kind of get that. But it's really easy to look at that event and to conclude all Transformers, because that's the word I have to use on YouTube, all Transformers are terrorists. No, there are terrorist cells that are Antifa that are funded by NGOs. Yeah, that's a real thing. Some of these protests that become violent, there are drop points for like weapons and bricks and things like that. So who's paying for that? There's got to be money moving hands if you look a little bit closer. So it's really easy to get caught up in, all these Transformers are terrorists and people who champion them are terrorist sympathizers. To an extent, that's true. To an extent, the people that were celebrating this political assassination, in my mind, tactically, dealing with what we're dealing with when it comes to 5th and 6th gen warfare, to me, they are terrorist sympathizers, whether they know it or not. The crazy thing is like they didn't think they were going to get fired for voicing these opinions. They thought that they were the common consensus, and maybe they were in 2020. But not all of these gender confused people are terrorists. Some of them are confused, and they've been programmed to hate beauty. I have a lot of sympathy and empathy for someone who's gender confused between the ages of, being a teenager and then maybe even through your mid-20s a little bit, because we have the phenomenon of delayed adolescence. So when you're looking at a teen who is gender confused, in my opinion, they're just neglected by their parents, and their parents are not exhibiting to them the joys of masculinity and femininity. There are a lot of reverse polarity marriages, Moms are in charge, moms are castrating, moms are domineering, dads are passive. They let a lot of nonsense go on in their household where you would think, what kind of man, what character of man would allow that and would facilitate that? Probably a weak man. So if you are a young male growing up in that environment and all you've been shown of masculinity, adult masculinity, is weakness, what joy do you have to look forward to when you become a man completely and entirely? And it's the same thing for women as well. Women who are girls growing up and seeing how much their moms hate being wives, how much their moms hate being moms, how much their moms would rather be at work than at home taking care of them, even though they spent 10 months making them. It shows women that there's not a lot of joy in embracing your femininity. And that sets them up for failure when they end up going to college. And a lot of people still send their kids to college. It can make sense if you're going to get a STEM degree or you're going to go to college for dating reasons. As long as there's like a financial or spiritual ROI, I think there's good reasons to go to college. But for the most part, a lot of parents are just saying like, yeah, you need to go to school. You need to get an education. I mean, the value of a degree right now that is not a STEM degree, and even the STEM degrees right now, they're not worth much. You're encouraging your children to get into lifelong debt with student loans, and they're also being propagandized by these far left teachers because guess what? The guys that figured out, if I go to college, they're going to hate me because I'm a straight white male. I'm not going to have access to scholarships. They're making things ridiculously challenging for me. They're importing the third world to come and get my degree plan, to come and take this opportunity from me. There's this idea that America has infinite resources. There's not. You give away scholarship after scholarship to the third world, you're taking that away from an American. Also, on top of that, if you keep giving them to women, female American students, in the name of diversity, you're taking those opportunities away from men. I mean, if we're going like bar for bar, these guys are equally qualified as the females that are being awarded these scholarships. You know, you're making it really hard. And so a lot of guys, they saw that and they said, I want to have a family. I want to get married. I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to go and do a trade. I'm going to get a paycheck tomorrow. And they did that. But when they did that, they conceded institutional power to the left. And this is the issue here. So I guess, you know, we could get to a place in America where institutions like colleges that receive public funding, maybe we can get to a place where conservative and liberal minds can be, you know, in charge of departments again. But right now that wasn't the case. And we saw that because we had across the nation a lot of PhDs, a lot of teachers, a lot of universities going viral for celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. I want to be mindful to not focus more on Charlie than you would on God and Christ. I think it's easy to get polarized and distracted. But remember the bigger picture. Remember this is a spiritual battle. And remember that honestly, he would want you to seek Christ above all else. We know that. He has stated as much, or he did state as much. So with these teenagers who are lost and they go to university, and sometimes it doesn't even matter if they go to university because you're getting indoctrinated in high school because guess what? Their teachers, their public school teachers, are coming from universities. So no matter what, the ideology that takes place in that secondary education institution impacts us on the local public school level. And that's how these kids get these ideas put in their minds. And I want to talk to those teenagers. I don't know if they're going to find this video. If you know a child who is gender confused, send them this video and give them this timestamp. If you're gender confused, you probably have a lot going on and you don't have a sense of pride in being male or female. And I want you to know that God has placed you in the right body. He did not make a mistake when he made you male or female. If you're a teenager, your body's going to change a lot and it's going to be uncomfortable. To go from 1 month looking one way to another month looking an absolutely different way. You have acne. Your feelings are all over the place. I can only speak from a woman's experience, from a female's experience, but I'm sure that there are men who go through that as well. And you're looking around you and men are being attacked. It's like, well, maybe I should be less of a man. That's a lie. Don't listen to that lie. There's incredible joy in being a man as well. I can remember being 12 and I went through puberty almost overnight. I went to stay with family for a summer. I went on that vacation as a girl and I came home from that vacation a woman. It was shocking for me to experience. Now, granted, it didn't seem like I had any true exposure to the far leftism indoctrination, because I would look at some of these hyper liberal ideas as a lukewarm liberal, and I was like, y'all are doing way too much. Y'all are just overthinking it. Like, I just want to get a job. I just want to get married. I just want to have some kids. I'm not worried about the patriarchy. I have things to do. So I wasn't confronted with that confusion, but I was confronted with emo culture, which glorified suffering in a way that I felt I could channel my pain and my hurt into, and which is why, like, I was an emo kid. I still like My Chemical Romance, but I realized there's an element of darkness within them. But when I went through puberty so quickly, there were things that happened that made me so uncomfortable, and nobody told me how to deal with them. So for me, it was like, yes, I started menstruating, TMI, sorry, started menstruating, and then I got a chest, and then I got a rear end, like all at once. I went from being a twig to being va-va-voom curvaceous. But the problem is that I was 12. So in my mind, I was a girl. But to the world, I looked like a woman. And then I started getting adult male attention. And it was scary because I was a girl, right? And nobody told me why men were looking at me in that way. And I think sometimes when young girls are going through that change, they see the male attention and they realize that there is a danger there, because there is. Male attention from the wrong male can hurt us. We intrinsically know that. So some women, instead of confronting that fear, they're going to run from that fear, possibly go the boss babe route. But absolute worst case scenario, they're going to say, clearly there's a mistake that has been made with my body. You know, maybe I really am a man inside. Maybe I'm something different. And if you're thinking like that, I want you to know that that is a lie, and you don't have to believe it. There is a lot of joy in being a woman. I said that a few times already, but the changes don't stop. There's a lot of the physicality of being a woman that's discomforting, and you have to face the challenge head on, or you can try to run away from it. From my perspective, at the age of 30, I could try to run away from it, and I could get Botox. I don't need lip filler, but some women pursue lip fillers. Some women, they'll get a nose job. Some women, they'll get a lot of work done on their skin, lasers to resurface your acne scars, all these things. Some women will get tummy tucks, which kind of on the fence about whether or not that makes sense. But the tummy tucks usually happen after they have children. You have children. Some women will get stretch marks, either on their hips, arms, what have you. There's lots of places you can get stretch marks. You can get stretch marks on your stomach. That's like the common one. But my point is like there's a lot of changes. So that discomfort of being in an ever-changing body is not going to go away. That is the experience of being a woman. There have been points in my life where I've had body dysmorphia. A long time ago, I lost 45 pounds. But after that, like, I felt like I was never fit enough. I felt like I was never skinny enough. But when I would look at the facts and the data, I was fit enough. I was thin enough. So depending on my fitness routine, if I was running a lot that year or if I was lifting a lot that year, my physique would change dramatically, because if I was into something, I was very passionately into it. And then so I could see the changes in my body that way. If I did CrossFit, I looked kind of boxy. If I ran, I looked kind of sinewy. And that can be jarring, especially if some of these changes are drastic. If any of you go through like a drastic weight loss, that can be an experience that you have. But then, getting older, going through pregnancy, my body changed a lot too. And it did make me uncomfortable. Not like it felt like it was wrong. It felt like it was supposed to be happening, but completely threw me for a loop. I didn't know what to expect. When you're pregnant, your breasts are going to change a lot as well. I know this is kind of like a TMI conversation, but this is in case there's somebody gender confused right now and their parents are not modeling a clear identity of masculinity and femininity. So if that's you, like, keep watching. However, you can try to fight these changes. You're not going to be able to. Once you're pregnant, you're pregnant. That's it. Once you have a baby, it can change your body significantly. Some women, a minority of women, have permanent changes to their pelvic floor, or even to other things. It doesn't matter once you're holding the baby. And you're not going to believe it right now, but it is true. Once you're holding the baby, it's all worth it. And honestly, women in past times had to go through those things as well, with much more negative outcomes. And it was common knowledge. Now, because a lot of women aren't having kids, or a lot of women are fighting aging, or a lot of women are pursuing cosmetics, now you look like the weird one if you have stretch marks. You look like the weird one if you have wrinkles. You look like the weird one if you have gray hair. I have all those things at 30. I mean, I don't know if I have wrinkles yet, but I certainly have the gray hair and I certainly have the stretch marks. And it has been absolutely worth it to come into my own completely as a woman. I wouldn't change it for anything in the world, but it was what came with the task, what came through the sanctification and glorification process. So if you're a teenager and you're feeling weird about your body and all these changes, yeah, I mean, I felt weird too. However, if you are a female, there's going to be a lot of times in your life where you're going to feel weird about your body. We're not like men. Men, you know, they age slower, but if they eat healthy and they kind of watch themselves, they're never going to get pregnant. They're never going to stretch their skin like that. They're never going to have drastic changes. They're not going to go from, you know, being jacked and boxy or sinewy to being a little bit fluffy, a little bit quicker, okay? They're just different. They don't have a monthly cycle, and that monthly cycle comes with some more physical changes, but it's all part of the gig, is what I'm trying to tell you. And it's not a mistake, and it's not a bad thing. It is there to make you a better person and to try to accept yourself. That's what body positivity was supposed to be. And I am going to talk about body positivity now. So if you're a gender confused teen girl, I hope somebody sent this video to you. Going into body positivity and talking about the far left and the ideology that they spread, which kind of hits center left and centrist people. The body positivity situation, what it should have been is what I described to you. Is that not beautiful at any size, because that's not true. We can see that. But beautiful at any shape. Women come in a lot of shapes. I had no idea how many shapes women came in. I thought when I was younger that all women had my figure, my physique. I went to basic training in the military, which means see people behind the scenes in gym showers and stuff like that. And then you get to really noticing, like, wow, we are all very different shapes per our ethnicity. This is insane. Incredible variability from woman to woman. So body positivity was supposed to be for that. But then it wasn't for that. Then it was for obesity, which, oh my goodness, like, who made sense of that? And if you're a bigger woman or an obese woman, overweight or what have you, like, I was close to that, by the way. There was a point in my life where I was almost obese and I lost that weight and I never gained it all back. If you are buying into this far left ideology, they're teaching you to hate what is beautiful. They're teaching you to hate athleticism, masculinity, femininity, marriage, and children. And if you are programmed to hate beauty, you have no idea what you're missing. I remain thoroughly convinced that if overweight or obese people knew what it was like to be athletic, that they would pursue the weight loss overnight. On the other side, there's strength, there's a sense of well-being and health. You breathe better, you walk better, you sleep better. Everything's better. Your acne improves. All of that goes together. But if you're in that place where you're overweight and you've got the acne and everything's aching and everything's inflamed and your GI tract is, you know, on its last leg, you have irritable bowel syndrome. Sorry, it's a very common thing that people experience. I know people don't like talking about it, but hey, this is what a lot of Americans are dealing with here, especially with how disgusting the processed foods are. If you're feeling that, you don't know what's on the other side and you think that it's impossible to get to the other side. And so instead of, you know, taking the journey of 1,000 steps, starting with one, having faith in yourself, believing in yourself to accomplish this goal, I just want to give you these words of encouragement that if you are overweight and you're struggling and you feel ugly, to be honest with you, you probably look ugly. I can tell you with absolute certainty, if you are overweight, if you are obese, you don't look like the healthiest version of yourself. And if you're looking in the mirror and every day you see something that's ugly, and it's factually true, it's going to mess with your head. Also, people may not be honest with you. When I was fat, no one told me. And the simps certainly didn't tell me because they probably wanted to take me out to lunch sometime, if you know what I mean. So they didn't tell me anything. I had no idea until I was being confronted. And this is kind of funny because it's a cultural distinction. I was being confronted with white coworkers when I was in the military, and they were like, you should work out. And they were basically like, you're fat. Okay. And I was like, noted. Thanks for the information. And then I got to chit-chatting with them. I was like, how do I lose weight? They taught me and they told me, and I kind of took it from there. And I never gained all that weight back. But I remembered when I started pursuing a healthier lifestyle, I was shocked at how much better my sleep got, how strong I felt. I mean, when I was really fit at 24, I could work out twice a day, run 8 miles, and go to the gym for another 2 hours. I felt like I could run through a brick wall. It was an incredible feeling. And I have never felt that way again. I could get back there, but I'm a little bit busy with the homemaking. I will get to it. It will happen. So I'm going to talk to you about the anti-whitism that is going on. If you're new to the channel, you might not know this. I was afraid of white people until I was 23. Genuinely, I was afraid of them. I viewed them very suspiciously. And I viewed them suspiciously because I had been told time and time again that they were plotting against me. This is not a joke. This is very real. I had Gen X parents who grew up with a chip on their shoulder from the racial tensions of the 80s, where people actually were probably openly racist. There's a lot of race riots back in the day. Now we don't have race riots. We have leftist riots. It's almost similar. I mean, a riot's a riot, you know? But I was afraid, and I didn't stop being afraid until I joined the military. And I was mentored by conservative white males. That was because I had the courage to ask questions. And this is something that I think if you're on the other side, I'm coming to you with compassion. If you don't understand conservatives, if you don't understand the right, ask them questions in good faith. Don't ask them questions in bad faith, because we're at a point in time right now where we don't want to talk to you anyway. So unless you're coming to us correct, we're probably not going to be open with our ideas, because we don't know who you are. We don't know if you want to report us, if you want to put us on blast, if you want to hurt us. We don't know. So come correct, come in good faith, and ask your questions. I remembered asking these white males that I worked with. I worked in the medical area. So I was dealing mostly with medical providers, so like doctors, DOs, PAs. And I noticed that a lot of them were straight white men who looked healthy, and then they had wives, and then their wives looked healthy, and then they had kids, but they were all Republican. And I was like, why are you guys all Republican? Like, make this make sense to me. Because I noticed it. I noticed a pattern. So I was like, man, what is this? So the white males would ask them questions. The first question I asked was, are all cops racist? Are they really racist? Because they look racist. Because that's what I knew. And they just told me, like, no. Sometimes there are bad cops, but they're not just going to be bad to black assailants. They're also going to be bad to white assailants too. There's some people that have a chip on their shoulder from how they grew up, and they want to work that out through being a police officer, which is something that I could agree with and I could see. But they were saying, like, for the most part, they're not racist. They're just doing their job. They love their community. They want to protect people. And because I trusted these men, I could trust their opinion. And also, you know, now that some time has passed and I'm what would be considered middle-aged for a woman, I've gotten to know a lot of cops, and they do really just care about their community, and they want to make a difference. There's something that's masculine within them that they're like, this is the job that I want. And it's a dangerous job. A lot of people, I think, don't have compassion for police officers. They don't have time to sit and give you grace and wonder, are you going to hurt me or are you not going to hurt me? They're trying to get home to their family. They need to protect their life first and foremost. So if they're a little bit quicker to react to aggression, I have compassion, empathy, and sympathy for that, because they're not having a good time either. If they're putting their lives on the line, especially if a police officer takes somebody's life, they're not going to go home and feel good about that if they're a moral individual. And the thing is that the body cam footage came out now. So now we know that the cops are actually being aggressed, and they're responding to that. Because before we had widespread body cams, the left was saying something along the lines of that the police officers are targeting Black Americans. Now we know that that is not true. It seems to be that if you look at the statistics, there is an element of criminality in that demographic that is being expressed. You could be a Black person watching this. Don't take it personally. I am Latina. If you are new here, you probably don't know that I'm Puerto Rican. My community has the same problems as the Black community. The only reason why America doesn't care, because we would cause just as much chaos. The only reason why America doesn't care is because there's not enough of us. If we were a larger demographic in the United States of America, I promise you, we would also be being slandered as a group. You could be part of a group that on the whole seems to express antisocial behaviors compared to other demographics. You might not do the antisocial behaviors. You could be a good, moral, and just person, but because you are physically identifiable as being part of that group, you could have to be dealing a little bit with the stereotypes that come with that. And I felt that too. People who expected me to be a teen mom, because that's what my people do. Anyway, the data that comes out about who cops target and why, you look at it and you're like, this is not what I was told it was. And no one's complaining about a well-adjusted Black American who is a lawyer with a wife and kids. Nobody's complaining about Jamal, the lawyer, married to Keisha, and he has his 2 kids, and he's like a really moral, wonderful person. Everybody loves working with him. Nobody is complaining about him. You're complaining about Quantavious from a not very good neighborhood. I'll put it to you like that. That's who people are complaining about. So anyway, like I said, I'm coming from a place of compassion because I think there's an urge, because this is your tribe that is being put out there exhibiting antisocial behavior. There's a desire to be like, I promise we're not bad. Stop saying that we're bad. I'm willing to say it out loud publicly that Puerto Ricans have issues, but I don't feel that I am personally responsible because I behave differently. I went on to get married and have children, so I don't behave like that. I'm civil in real life for the most part. I mean, I got a little point. The Puerto Rican rage is real, okay? There's a point where I have to really lean on the Lord to not snatch people's souls verbally. That is what I dealt with anti-Whitism. It was how I was raised, but it was also what the TV told me. I stopped watching the news sometime in my late teens, and now I mostly watch YouTube. I watch kids shows for reasons. But I stopped watching the news years ago, and that has helped me to really snap out of it. So if you're dealing with the far left ideology and there's a lot of lies that you're believing, I hope that this can open your eyes a little bit to what's on the other side. Because even when I woke up years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I don't even believe the same things that I did then. Like now, I wouldn't say that I am a moderate right-winger. I don't think that I am. I'm a Christian and I'm a nationalist. That does not mean that I am a Christian nationalist. I am a Christian and I love my country, and I want to make sure that as a part of that society that I am doing my Christian duty. And then as a nationalist, I love America. It's one of the best experiments that's ever been done. It is the cornerstone of Western civilization. We are the trendsetters. We implemented capitalism very quickly. We ended slavery very quickly. We get stuff done. There is pride to be had in being an American. And so I hold those 2 identities, but that is not what I believed when I was younger. When I was younger, I just needed to know a couple of things. Okay, I needed to know, is the Democrat Party using me? Why are they always focusing on race? What is that about? It seems like they want to use me as a point of pain as a Latina, but they don't actually want to help me because they're very good at moving money around, but they're not very good at showing minorities and ethnics how to use that money. I mean, in a sense that something that's very popular is, getting the grants done where they can fund NGOs to help people, but they're going to throw millions of dollars at it. And sometimes those millions of dollars end up in the hands of Americans. And this could be a really good thing, or it could be a really bad thing. If you're going to give Americans stipends, kind of similar to what happened during the pandemic, but they don't have basic financial literacy, the stipend's going to do nothing. If you give them a grant, if you give them a loan, if you make it a little bit easier for them to get access to these funds, but they don't know how to use them to improve their lives in the long term, it will do nothing. So they'll get the money and it'll be gone in the blink of an eye. And that's something that I kind of questioned as someone who is a lukewarm liberal or who is a Democrat. they've got all this money. They're putting the money out there. It's not making any difference. I'm not seeing positive outcomes economically or professionally for my demographic. Like, what's going on? That was a belief that I had confronted. Other things that I had questions about, it seemed a lot to me like if a woman was to terminate a pregnancy, that she would be terminating a baby. It seemed a lot to me like that. And I was wondering, why do these people keep saying it's a clump of cells? I have eyes. I'm not getting it. However, there are some women who believed that and they pursued ending a pregnancy and they found out that it was very much like a very small baby that they gave birth to, and they had no idea until they went to Planned Parenthood, took the medication, and now they're being confronted with, wow, this is a baby. So some people, one, they're very deceived, or two, they're not very bright. I am not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be offensive, but you can be so blind to the human gestation process that you will not understand that what is inside of you is a very tiny person. It's a person. They have feelings. They giggle in there. They laugh. You eat something spicy, they're documented as possibly reacting. Also, when we're talking about terminating a pregnancy, because I can't use the A word on YouTube, we're talking about terminating a pregnancy, they react to the violence that's being committed against them. They're in pain, having the brutality of what a termination can require depending on how far along a woman is. They experience pain. I had questions about that, and once I figured out what the reality was, I was no longer pro-choice in any capacity. I'm a staunch pro-lifer in lots of circumstances. Now I can appreciate that there are some exceptions that people think are good, the exceptions where they would think that it's acceptable for a woman to terminate pregnancy. I don't view it that way, but I understand where they're coming from, and I can say as a woman, if I was put in the exceptions case of what conservatives are willing to allow to terminate a pregnancy, if I was put in that situation, it would be really, 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 really hard for me to choose life. I would probably do it because I'm far enough in my faith to do something like that, but I can appreciate the weight and the gravity of that situation. Other things I thought seemed pretty suspicious to me that our culture was, one, secular, yes, godless, but then women, are almost incentivized to divorce. They're also incentivized, if you're coming from lower socioeconomic status and depending on the government, you're incentivized to not get married to a man who can add income to your household. I wondered about that. It seems like this hurts kids, and it seems like it's preventing a true joy for a woman and also for her children. There are single mothers who are bad actors. Some of them are very good people. Some of them raise their children well. But I have met some who were bad actors, and they would get their money and they wouldn't use it appropriately for their children because they're functioning on feelings. They don't have a masculine presence to check them and say, you know what? No. If your kid has worse clothes than you, you don't deserve as a mother to have newer and fresher clothes and shoes. You go without, you get what your kid needs. Make sure they don't have holes in their sneakers. Make sure they have good food. No, you don't deserve to go on vacation to be with your girlfriends when you can barely pay your rent. Do the right thing. Like, there's some single mothers that have sense, but I'm telling you, growing up the way that I did and also being around children who were coming from single mother homes, a lot of them don't, right? And so it seemed like the public policy was incentivizing bad behavior, which at the end of the day impacts children. And when these children grow up, hopefully they're well-adjusted adults, but if they're not well-adjusted adults, we're just creating an issue of criminality that the rest of us are having to deal with or clean up, right? So those are the questions that I had when I was younger and I was liberal, because I just noticed patterns. I felt that the Democratic response to certain patterns was impractical and trying to keep my people worse off. I hope my conversation was helpful. I know that we went all over the place, but I was trying to comprehensively come here with a heart of compassion, because not all of the people on the left are as far gone as we think. Some are. And yes, there are ideological influences that are coming from institutions that come out in the public sector. Some are, and they feel, protected in having their views and being hateful. They think it's okay to be hateful. I'm talking about nurses, I'm talking about teachers, professors, instructors, congressmen and women, they think it's okay to be this hateful toward other Americans. They are a problem. There is a problem with transformer terrorist cells in the United States of America that are funded by NGOs. There is a problem. But there are also just people who aren't thinking. Maybe they don't have the intellectual capacity to understand what they're agreeing to. But because we have such a culture of cowards, they're not being confronted. Right. And so if you are thinking some things that you think don't make sense and they're not matching with reality and nobody's confronting you, I want to encourage you to ask questions to conservatives in good faith. I said that earlier. If you ask questions in good faith and the person is intelligent, they should be able to articulate to you why they believe what they believe. Don't be afraid to do that, because I did that and it changed my life. On a fundamental level, it changed my life. And I don't just mean ideologically, but spiritually and practically. The men that I talked to, they taught me how to buy property, which is a big deal. I bought my first house when I was in my early 20s. Who can say that these days? I ended up selling it for a profit a few years later, but they helped me. There is something about that demographic of white conservative males, where they like to share and impart wisdom on others. It's almost like they enjoy mentorship as a hobby. I don't know why. It's so interesting, because you could be like, I have this goal. How do I achieve it? And they're like, oh, I'm so glad you asked me. Here, let me pull out a seat. Come, have a seat. Would you like some coffee? I've got some ideas I want to pitch to you. They just get so excited, And so don't view them as the enemy that they aren't, right? And don't get confused with thinking all people who are gender confused are awful terrorists. I have a lot of compassion for the teenagers. I don't have as much compassion. I'm being honest with you guys. I don't have as much compassion for the middle-aged men who are married and have kids and decide to transition and essentially make a widow out of that woman, and they pull in their kids into their drama. Like, I don't have compassion for you guys. I'm sorry. You're going to have to go to a more developed Christian if you're trying to change your life. I'm not far enough along in my walk with Christ to have mercy on you. But the teenagers, I talk to you guys all day. No big deal. Gen Z conservatives, you guys are on the right path, but there are people who are wanting to capitalize on your anger and deceive you and get you to commit terrible acts. We know, looking at history, that violence gets results. However, at the cost of what? And I'm not saying to be passive. I'm saying where we're at right now at this point in the culture, we can take assertive actions where we don't have to go to jail for them. You feel me? We can have assertive actions. We can run for office. We can be legislators. We can be politicians. We can make differences on our local level. Something as simple as being willing to make the phone calls that women don't want to make, right? Essentially, being willing to talk to the manager. That has been demonized. Okay, we made fun of all these Karens, and where is customer service now? I want the Karens back. Any woman who complained because they know what customer service is supposed to look like, and we made fun of them, I'm sorry. We were wrong. Y'all had the right idea. So if you're a man and you're wanting to make some of these institutional changes, I just want you to know that there's an assertive way to do that without being passive. Don't get so caught up with the tension in the nation that you lose your mind and you lose strategy. We can dismantle leftist ideology's presence in the United States of America. We can. We know this because they were able to dismantle conservatives. They were able to make us weaken us. They were able to do that. So if they're able to do that, we know that we possess the tools available socially, technologically, etc. We know that we have the tools to weaken them. And it's not going to be an overnight process. You got to think strategically. You have to think in the long term. But more than ever, you need to have a community of like-minded men around you who can think critically about how to make institutional change, who can think critically about what is the best way to do this in a manner that, one, if these gentlemen are Christian, best glorifies God, but also, two, does not make a bad situation worse, because that's what you want to avoid. There is a path that is somewhere in the middle that's righteous but not passive. Assertion is a good behavior. It's a good thing. It says, we don't want to be messed with. Don't do these things in our area. We're not going to stand for it. And all you need to do is just be a little bit more noticeable. Let people know that you're watching them. Let these businesses know that you're watching them. That we saw what this person said, who's your employee. Do you stand by this? We want to know if we should give you money or not. Anyway, I hope you found comfort in that conversation. I know it wasn't super long, epic rant, and I had to cover a lot of points, but I was trying to be comprehensive. Hope something stuck out to you. If something did stick out to you, can you let me know in the comment section down below? If you are wanting to make changes to the country, you can start at a local level. We know the government's probably not going to do a ton, okay? There's so much the government could be doing right now that they're not doing. So you can make changes on a local level. And if enough of us make changes on a local level, it can make big waves. Globally, it seems that people are getting fed up with globalism. And they think that Charlie Kirk was the catalyst that set that off. And to a degree, yes, but it was more that, you know, he is what was being represented. He was a Christian white male. I know people want to ignore the white part of it, but it's there. You can't ignore it, right? You know, a couple days prior, there was a Ukrainian refugee that was killed on public transit in a liberal area. So we see these things and we're wondering what to do, and you can take actions, but understand the world is tired of it. So it's not stupid for you to take action. We know that people are coming out and protesting in England. People are protesting in Australia. There is a global awakening where people are saying that they want to reject globalism, which is part of leftism, but they want to reject globalism, and they want to have law and order, and they want to have ethno-states. They want to have states with their kin and to have less visitors and less immigrants. And that's not an inherently bad thing. It makes sense. If you want to have trust in a society, I need to be amongst a group of individuals who looks like me. Yeah, I mean, that is important for morale reasons, but it's also important on a fundamental biological level. I need to know that we're in a similar tribe. I need to know where you're coming from. Because honestly, if you want to get more theoretical, people who look like you often think like you too. I don't know how anyone could deny that. If you're Latin, you know what it's like to be in a group of Latinos versus being in a group of whites versus being in a group of blacks versus being in a group of Asians. You've had that feeling. If you're Asian, black, or white, you've had that feeling as well, where it seems like I'm able to have conversations with people who look like me and we're all on the same page. It's a feature, not a bug. And so people are saying, like, all of these visitors, we don't know who they are. We don't know what they think. They don't look like us, and they probably don't think like us. They're showing us that they don't think like us. This is causing a major problem. This is degrading our society. And when I say that, I am not saying to advocate for imperialism. Like, hear me when I say this. I am saying that ethnicities and cultures have the right to be exclusive and preserve themselves. That is what I am telling you. So yes, like, there's all these global protests that are going on where people are starting to reject leftism. And it seems like Charlie Kirk was the catalyst, but there's a lot of things that have been mounting in for a long time. And so if you are in a position to where you are being dramatically awakened, you're not crazy. The stuff is real. Most people don't keep track of it because they don't like to be informed. I wish I was less informed. And I gotta say, on my way out, people who have been Christian longer than me, it's a little bit frustrating. And I'll tell you why. It's because they're right. They are right on so much. And as someone who I think I'm a baby Christian, I'm willing to call myself a toddler Christian at this point. I believe I have grown. But they're always coming with such wisdom. This was my first major event as a passionate Christian where a lot of truths are being revealed. This is my first event. So if you were passionately Christian during COVID, you're like, oh, I've been through this before. I was conservative leaning or outright conservative during COVID, but I wasn't passionately Christian. And so when something like this happens, the older, wiser Christians are like, control your anger. Control your anger. I see where they're coming from because it's a distraction from God. We're supposed to be in this world, but not of it. And if you get passionately angry and you don't control it or contain it, it can spill out into something awful. Take everything that I said with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that things are going to be able to remain peaceful forever. They don't seem peaceful right now. However, I'm saying that I don't think that we're at the brink of a civil war like a lot of people are theorizing. I think with the system we have in place, I think we can win. But we have to know what the system is, and we have to utilize it, or we have to modify it, whatever that looks like. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope that you're able to get a discount on the tinfoil for your tinfoil hat. You're in good company. We can wear our hats together.